Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sacred Soulful Sundays. My name is B. Pila, and let's get into this week's session. A lot of information had been coming through in a meditation that I did this week. The words that kept coming in were empathy, apathy for whatever reason, and compassion. And what is the difference between those words, and what do they mean to us? Because we in the spiritual world, we speak a lot about compassion, and we speak a lot about, emotional empathy and all of these things, but we don't really dive into what they may mean at our core. And that's where the work that we're doing at our core comes from. Okay. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that the work, for example, the exercises that have to do with, which I mentioned last week, which have to do with our mother and our relationship with our mother, our relationship with our father, and then our relationship with our partners. How many of you have actually dived into the exercises about that? So when you start diving in to the exercises about your parents, which I cannot emphasize enough how important it is, okay? When you dive into describing your parents, it's probably one of the most emotional work that you could do, because, what you feel or what the core energy and emotion about them comes up when you start writing down how you describe them. Being a parent is the hardest job in the world. I mean, you are responsible for human beings that come through you but are not of you. And I truly mean this. Everyone, and this is an incredibly important lesson that actually is in this book, you are not responsible for anyone's soul's journey. Okay? Everyone is only responsible for their soul journey. It is a very deep and personal, individualized decision that you make as a soul to come in to this physical form and this earth school that we live in. Okay? No one else has that responsibility. However, you come in a collaborative effort with others, and we come purposely to create situations in our lives that allow us to grow to the next level of our evolution as a soul. Okay? And this is why the connection between this life and other lifetimes is so important. And the connection between ourselves and our ancestors is so important, because there's a deep weaving web of the DNA within our physical form that is embedded as energy within us. I hope I made that clear. Okay. And you know what was really crazy is I was watching, I watch a lot of Disney lately. I wonder why, right? Those of you that have small children will relate. Those of you who don't, I highly recommend that you watch a lot of Disney, because let me tell you something, there's some crazy stuff in there as an adult that you would never know if you were watching it from a childlike perspective. And recently I watched Encanto.
I haven't seen it, but I know it has to do with that intergenerational.
All right.
It is an amazing story. Everybody should watch it.
Yes, isn't Encanto fabulous? Okay, now, if you go all the way to the end, tell me that story is not about constellations and ancestral history. Is it not? It's
Absolutely.
like, we don't talk about Bruno. No, 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 right? We don't talk about Bruno, no, 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 right? So it's like showing you exactly how important it is to integrate our ancestral history, correct? And to deal with the fears. The grandmother, the biggest ancestor of all, traumatized by the death of her father, right? By the death of her father, with 3 little babies in her arms, goes on, and a miracle happens to her family, and she becomes the core ancestor of all of this lineage. Am I right? And then at the end, they actually say the words constellations in the song. Those of you who have not seen this movie, watch it, and watch it all the way to the end. And that last song, put it on, how do you call it when you see the word subtitles? Put subtitles and read the words of the songs, okay? And you will flip out at how much is in there. And then last night, the girls were watching the one with the red panda, Poncho, ¿cómo se llama esto? Seeing red, okay? Another story about ancestral history and trauma and emotions and anger. It's like, what the hell? Disney is like really, really ahead of the game when it comes to what we need in humanity today. I mean, they're so on point. So what happens here if we do not integrate the emotions that we feel about our mother and about our father? This is our foundational connection. These are the 2 parts of us, the masculine and the feminine, the energy of all the ancestors that come from the male lineage and all the ancestors that come from the female lineage, joining together to make us. Okay, joining together to make us. If we do not process this information and how we feel, we're like not, we don't have the harmony that we need to manifest the goodness in our lives. Does that make sense? So just like in Encanto, that Maribel, no pun intended, Maribel has the job. She doesn't have any intuitive, psychic, phenomenal gifts, but her gift is to unite her family outside of trauma. That's her gift. In Seeing Red, she has to integrate her anger panda, and she's the last one of all the ancestors that is able to say, I harness my emotions in a positive way. I deal with it. I don't shut them out and stick them into a closet. Watch those 2. This is your homework, guys. Fun stuff. You don't have to read a book and do exercises. I want you to watch these movies and tell me what you see in these movies after learning what I'm teaching you here. That's what your homework is. Okay? Yes, Olga, thank you. I want you guys to pay attention to the beauty of these movies that are so much fun to watch, but they teach us so much. So now, the words that came through for me: empathy, apathy, and compassion. I had a lot of thoughts about what that meant when they came in my meditation. And when we discover how we truly feel about our parents, and then ultimately how we feel about our partners, because when we bring a partner and commit to them in our lives, they become similar to the relationship of our mother and father. There is something that happens when we commit to another human being to create a new family, because whether you have children or not, by the way, okay, it doesn't matter. And this is why this union is so sacred. And in all religions and all times, the union of 2 people that create partnerships is so sacred. The reason that that happens is because that union is sacred from an energetic perspective. Because when you join together in a partnership that conjugates in some deep form, whether it be for a short period of time or for a long period of time, it does not matter. It is a sacred relationship. In Louise Hay's book, she writes that she, at the end of her mother's life, she completely forgives and integrates and has compassion for her mother. And compassion and forgiveness are incredible tools for us. Okay? The energy, and I'm going to talk about it as energy, the energy of forgiveness and the energy of compassion are given to us by grace. Okay? And grace is a direct energetic field of source. Okay? It envelops love in such a deep way that we see the other side of things. So let me explain what I mean by that. Take a moment to put yourself in the position after you write the core descriptors of your mom and your dad. Okay? You need to be able to sit with that for a bit and see the other side of things. And that's what Louise Hay does at the end of her book. She says, I recognize that my mother did the best she could with what she had to work with. And all of us are doing that every day, especially those of us that are parents. Name one parent that has not experienced a total, like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing with this kid. I feel so lost. Who's going to give me instructions? They're all so different. I don't know what to do. We all feel that. We all absolutely feel that. And the forgiveness piece is saying, I love you anyway, just as you are. And that helps both sides heal. That helps everyone heal. Okay?
100%.
That's it.
But thank you, B. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, my love. It's my pleasure. Listen, all I can do is give you guys what I have learned, and hopefully we all get better at this, because you know what? It kind of sucks the other way, okay? If we don't get healed, if we don't heal, we can't be the light. Okay? That's what we're doing here. That's what I keep saying over and over again. So, like I said, I encourage you to do the work. We're gonna, if you get to do your core descriptors and you see what comes out of that, you will go into the next phase, which is called the core language. And this is the exercise that comes next, which I'm going to share with you today, because a lot came up when I did it as well. And that's what you're going to be doing next. And this is basically the question that gets asked to get to the core sentence. Okay? The core sentence is this. You ask yourself, and I ask you all to take a moment, take a breath, breathe in. And ask yourself, my worst fear or the worst thing that could happen to me is. That's the question. And that opens a door to the underlying theme of the patterns that are working within you. Okay? my worst fear or the worst thing that could happen to me is? That's the question. So usually that answer comes in a form. The first word that comes up to be spoken is I blank, or they blank, or I could blank. Okay. My family, my spouse, my children could blank. Okay. And in order to make this a little bit easier, I wanted to share mine and what came up for me. So as I wrote down the answer to what my worst fear could be, this is what came up for me. And I encourage you to just write freely, just put some words down on paper in answer to that question. I wrote, my worst fear is not fulfilling my mission or purpose before I die. That's what came up for me. Or, again, I will run out of time. Remember the theme that I shared with you guys? Again, there's that feeling of like, I don't have enough time to get this done, right? I will be disappointed in myself. That's my worst fear. I will be disappointed in myself. And then I wrote again, I will come back again for the same reasons, because God knows I've done it many, many times. To prove myself to be significant, to be worthy, to be worthwhile, to be influential. This is my worst fear. And last but not least, when we distill that even further down to its essence of my worst fear, I wrote, I will not have mattered. That's the core distilled version of my worst fear. Okay? Now, for others, it might sound something like this. I'm all alone. They reject me. They leave me. I let them down. I lose everything. It's all my fault. They abandon me. They betray me. They humiliate me. Notice the words they, I'll go crazy. I'll hurt my child. I'll lose my family. I'll lose control. I'll do something terrible. I'll hurt someone. I won't deserve to live. I'll be hated. I'll kill myself. They'll lock me up. They'll put me away. It'll never end. Now, I know all of these things sound horrible, but they are a fear. They are a worse fear. And the reason I'm bringing this up, guys, is because just like the work that we do with the constellations, and just like we're talking about ancestry, history, trauma, pains, okay, this stuff that comes up as our worst fears is sometimes not our own.
B,
Yes.
first of all, that was intense.
Yes, I know.
And I don't know if I would want to write all that down and then something happens to me and somebody finds that journal that has all that information. I'm sorry. I have a problem with that.
Well,
And I'm being honest. 100%.
well, so the fear, dealing with your worst fear is is active in you, whether you write it down or not. Okay. And
So
you
it
could-
remains in my head.
of
But
course,
I can write it down because I fear, oh, what about if
you,
something happens to me and now everybody knows these thoughts?
you fear even looking at it on a piece of paper?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you must write it down. And you know what? If you fear somebody finding it, then burn it afterwards, but at least you got it. Okay? You must face your fear, Maribel. Fears are an illusion of our own making, and they're the opposite of joy and love. So if you don't deal with them, they deal with you. Simple as that. And that's what you're dealing with. So just like you finally went to your mother and you spoke your truth and she responded and you were able to connect on that level, you have to connect with your fear too and face it, because it's like the monster under your bed when you're a kid. Listen, that monster under the bed, you're thinking it's like horrible. It's huge. Like you can't even, and when you go under there, it might just be a dirty sock. Okay. So what I'm trying to tell you is all of it is in your own head, and being in your own head makes it bigger than it really is. And then when you're looking at it on a piece of paper and saying, wow, yes, and it is emotionally charged, because that's actually how you know it's true. Like when I read the words myself, I will not have mattered. It brings me to tears. Like I feel my body respond to that word, because I know that there have been many lifetimes where I felt at the end of that lifetime that I didn't matter. But that's my own judgment of me. And it's time to let that go. And maybe I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. Don't think that I'm like done. I don't know if I'll ever be done, but I can tell you one thing, being aware that I know this allows me to see when it's working in my favor or not in my favor in my life. And sometimes I could be motivated to do something or say something or act in a certain way based on that fear. And I get to choose, because now I know better. And like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. But if you don't know better, you can't do better. Similar to the compassion that you have to have for your mother, because she didn't know any better. So she couldn't do better, but you can. You can, because now you know better. And this is what this work does for us. It allows us to look at ourselves deeply. And we must look at ourselves deeply in order to heal the wounds and the traumas that we carry within us. And what's beautiful about this is that after we do this and we're able to clear the energy, because I spoke about this last week, that as you know, energy doesn't die. Hence why our ancestors live through us, because their energy is within us, right? So if energy doesn't die, what does it do? It changes, it transmutes, it transforms. That's all it does. It never dies. So how do we transmute the energy? And that was the question you had. Where do I start? What do I do? We acknowledge it. I'm in this life. I am B this time. I am obviously a woman. And you know what? She said, well, this is a pattern that you've had for 17 lives as a woman. So you know what? I'm so happy you finally recognized it and are ready to get rid of it. So you know what? What is time anyway? Listen, talking about time, that is actually my theme. Hence what I said, running out of it. So you know what? I know that time is a relative term, okay? I know that time is a relative term. And even though my fear, my biggest fear is running out of it, okay? I know that even that is an illusion. It's an illusion that I create for myself. But anyway, that is extremely deep, I know. But what all we can do is focus on what we want to accomplish and becoming aware of it, seeing it for what it is, seeing our fear for what it is, like looking at it in the face, turning the flashlight on the monster under your bed to see if it's a gremlin, a cockroach, or a sock. But listen, I'm telling you, you can choose when you want to turn on the flashlight and when you want to have the courage to go under the bed. Okay. And courage is a beautiful word, guys, because that's what it takes. Courage stems from the word cor, which is heart. Okay. Courage means heart. Remember the lion in the Wizard of Oz? If I only had a heart, right? And the lion is known for courage, correct? That symbol of courage. That's why people put lions in front of their homes, right? They don't put mice. They put lions. Why do they put lions in front of their house? Because they're supposed to have courage, the strength. They're representational of the king of the jungle, right? To have courage is to have a heart, to have the strength to be in your heart, whether it means facing your own fears, facing your death, facing whatever scares you. So I encourage you to have the courage to dive in. And I'm here for you. I'm here for you with whatever experience, knowledge, wisdom, guidance, consultation, advice, anything you need, I'm here. Because we must dive through the work. The universe will work for you always. You know, I want to share a quick story that I discovered this week for myself. You know, many years ago, I shared this with Florinda, so it's a repeat for you, Florinda. You get to hear things twice with me. But basically, a few years ago, you know that I decided to build this house that I'm in, right? And my vision was that I would, you know, have this studio here, downsize, blah, blah, blah. And I had, you know, we actually physically constructed and designed the house for that purpose, right? Guess what? And I laughed because, you know, I made plans and God laughed because he had other bigger plans for me. One of my deepest desires was to heal my relationship with my daughter. This is my biggest prayer, my greatest wish was to heal my relationship with my daughter. Okay? So imagine God had to create all of this scenario of my daughter leaving her partner, having 2 babies, having COVID hit, me bringing her here to the studio, giving the studio to her instead of to myself. 2.5 years later, I get my wish. I get my wish. My wish of having my daughter heal with me was greater and bigger than having me use this studio for myself. If that didn't all happen, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to bond with her and my granddaughters and be the grandmother that I wanted to be. You know what? The universe had bigger plans because my greatest desire, even though I may not have voiced it or written it down, was to heal with my daughter. So all of the maneuvers were created so that that could happen. And my other plan went on the back burner until later. So I know, looking back, that everything was perfectly designed, perfectly planned for my good, for my greatest good. And what is my greatest good? To be an open-hearted, growing, awakened spiritual person. That's what's the greatest good was. So what I say to you is look back at everything that's happening and look at your situation now and figure out how everything is working for you, because it is. Even though when you're within it, it doesn't seem like it is. How many things have occurred in your life that you look back at it now and say, oh, that's why that happened? Because inside you are having a great desire that has to be maneuvered like one big novela. You know how we watch those novelas and the plot twists thicken? That's how this works. So I hope that you guys do this work. I won't be on this book forever. I've been on it for 3 sessions straight. That's how important I feel it is. I will move on as soon as Source gives me the directive to do so. So right now, it still tells me that this is gravely important for all of you to do your spiritual awakening work and to ascend. I hope that it's useful, and I hope that I'm providing you with guidance that is needed for your lives. And you wouldn't be on this call this way if it wasn't for that purpose. Yes, Mom?
There is a very old saying that says, El hombre propone y Dios dispone.
Correcto.
Proposes and God disposes.
Yes. And I know that God has my back. I know, and talking about trust, my biggest challenge is to trust and surrender. That's one of my biggest challenges, is to let go and let God. Really. I think it's one of our biggest challenges as a whole, is to think that everything is working for me, no matter what. Everything for our greatest and highest good. And if we try to control that pattern without trust, faith, and belief that everything is working for us, we're going to have a bumpy ride. If we release control and say, everything's on autopilot, I've already stated what I want, I've already gotten in cahoots with the one above saying, this is what I want for now. Is it in my highest and greatest good? And if it is in my highest and greatest good, and in the highest and greatest good of all, then so be it. If you use those words, you really, really can't fail. There's no such thing, because everything is happening as it should be. And time is really an illusion. I hope that you will, however, dedicate the time to yourselves, to your highest and greatest growth, to be able to recognize what patterns and fears and traumas are working through you, within you. Because what's beautiful about this, in being connected as we are as human beings, that everything is connected and we are all connected. The work that we do will also work its way through all. That's the beauty of it. As we clear, everyone clears. And that is the greatest blessing that we can possibly have. Hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. And if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. We love to hear what you have to say.